explanation for the 2011 long essay, FRQ. First of all, somebody asked, this was a really good question, how are we going to graph on our computers from home? I would imagine you've got a group of individuals at the College Board completely stressing out about that right now. So your guess is as good as mine at this point. I don't know. I mean, it may be like you have to explain what you would do on the graph, something like that. I don't know. So we'll find out April 3rd. Okay, so we're going to get all the specifics for AP Gov and AP Macro on April 3rd. Okay, so I just kind of randomly chose 2011, so I may work my way up to 2019. I may go back and do a couple of other years, maybe get into 2010 or 2009. I'm not sure yet. I got to take a look at some of these. This graph does not include any Unit 6 stuff, so it does not include that current account or financial account or the Forex. So this is all fair game. Number one says, assume that the United States economy is currently in a recession and a short-run equilibrium. Draw a correctly labeled graph with the short-run and long-run Phillips curves. Use the letter A to label a point that could represent the current state of the economy in recession. Okay, so here you go. Number one, I've got it labeled A, right? Do that. That helps the reader. Remember to write out the words on your axes: inflation, unemployment. I've got my long-run Phillips curve, short-run Phillips curve, and then it's labeled A. There you go. That's it. That's all you need. B says, draw a correctly labeled graph of aggregate demand and aggregate supply in the recession and show each of the following: the long-run equilibrium output labeled YF, the current equilibrium output and price levels labeled YE and PLE respectively. So ignore my PL2 and Y2 for right now. Just kind of pretend that doesn't exist and ignore this AD1. Your graph should have just simply looked like this. You got the long-run aggregate supply. You've got a recessionary gap. You've got your full output labeled as YF. You have your YE here, your PLE. I've written out the words price level and real GDP. There you go. All right. To balance the federal budget, all right, suppose that the government decides to raise income taxes while maintaining the current level of government spending. On the graph in Part B, show the effect of the increase in taxes. Label the new equilibrium output and price level Y2 and PL2 respectively. Well, if the government decides to raise income taxes and you're in a recessionary gap, well, that's going to continue to decrease consumer spending, meaning aggregate demand should decrease. If you're going to raise income taxes in a recession, you're going to go more into a recession. So you have even more of a pronounced recessionary gap here. I've labeled this AD1. They're telling me to label it Y2, PL2, Y2, PL2. There we go. Now, if that kind of tricked you up a little bit, I get it, because 9 times out of 10, the College Board put something in place where you actually correct the recessionary gap. You're not in this instance. You've got to have it going more into a recession, because that's what raising taxes is going to do. Okay, assume that the Federal Reserve uses monetary policy to stimulate the economy. What open market policy should the Federal Reserve implement? All right. I'm writing this how I would want you to write this, so I've got a complete sentence here. The open market policy the Fed should use is buying bonds. All right. I've written in a complete sentence. They're buying bonds. There you go. Using a correctly labeled graph of the money market, show how the policy in Part D.I. affects nominal interest rates. What will be the impact of the policy on the price level? Explain. Okay, here's my graph, right? I've got nominal interest rate written out. You need to write out the words, quantity of money. It's fine if you label this just simply your interest rate 1. We're showing the money supply increase. They're buying bonds. Buy bonds, big money supply increase, bringing the interest rate down. What will be the impact of the policy on the price level? Explain. Price level will increase. All right. So what you're thinking back to the aggregate demand, aggregate supply model, because that shows us price level, right? And they're saying this change happened on this graph. Interest rates went down. So they're really saying what's going to happen to price level on this graph? Well, price levels will increase. When the feds buy bonds, that bond purchasing, it's going to increase the money supply. which will then lower interest rates, right? We've increased the money supply, lowering interest rates. That's going to increase investment spending. Aggregate demand is going to increase. And as aggregate demand increases, right, price level is going to go up. All right, so you need to fully explain that. You need to connect all that dots. That's that chain reaction. They usually ask that. That's really common in the long essay, that they make you, once the Fed does something on the money market, they make you then bring it to the aggregate demand, aggregate supply model, right? And you're just explaining that whole chain of events. E says, now assume instead that the government and the Federal Reserve take no policy action in response to the recession. In the long run, will the short run aggregate supply increase, decrease, or remain unchanged? Explain. We've done this so many times, it's unreal. Hopefully you got it, right? The short run aggregate supply will increase. Why? Because in the long run, wages and resource prices will decrease. In a recessionary gap, that's the resources and wrap becoming cheaper, shifting aggregate supply to the right. In the long run, what will happen to the natural rate of unemployment? In the long run, there will be no change to the natural rate of unemployment. The only thing that can impact the natural rate of unemployment in a country is unemployment benefits, unemployment compensation. If your country has a really generous unemployment compensation, you're going to have a higher natural rate of unemployment, like France that has 8 or 9%. In the United States, we have 4 to 6% because our unemployment benefits are not all that generous. However, they are getting more generous as we continue to deal with this pandemic. I hope you guys are noticing all the fiscal and monetary policy stuff going on. All right, you can go explain that to other people. Look real smart. Okay, that's it for today. You guys asked for this. You wanted some macro review. I'm going to try and do one of these a day. If we do one of these a day, I think between now and that AP macro exam, I think you guys are solid. So keep up with these. I'm not going to make these a grade or anything like that, but again, you guys asked for this, so here you go.